Going to move on to the legislative session. At this time, we have, looks like 2 items on the consent agenda. Would anyone on the board like to remove any of those consent agenda items at this time?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Kramer has a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Hamilton, to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
I want to thank Mr. Aaron Smith, our newly appointed park board member tonight. Aaron, waving his hands back there. The board thanks you. I thank you for stepping up. We look forward to many years of your involvement on the park board, and we appreciate your service, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just to, and as part of the introduction, I'd like to mention that Aaron has a degree in physical education. He also works for the Department of Conservation and lives in Ward 2, and he's very excited about being part of the city and serving for us. So I welcome him also.
All right, thank you. Moving to the regular agenda now, we have a number of resolutions before us. I'm going to ask the clerk to perform the reading on item number 2, please.
A resolution authorizing and approving the expenditure of funds with the Jackson County Election Board in excess of $15,000, but within budgeted amounts for fiscal year 2010-2011.
Anything to elaborate upon, Ms. Henry?
Just that we...
Any questions of our beloved city clerk, Mr. Van Buskirk?
Mr. Ertz was actually ahead of me, sir.
We got.
I
You guys are
wanted
respecting each other way too much down there.
I would like to make a motion to approve this resolution as read. I'll second.
Mr. Van Buskirk has the motion to approve the resolution, seconded by Mr. Ertz. Is there discussion on item 2? Ms. Melson.
On the projected expense for this of $29,000, is that the usual cost for the elections that we hold here?
Yes.
Okay, and
I mean,
so...
it's a deposit. We may get some back.
Okay, so we make that deposit, and then if it's under that, they send us a check back? That's what I'm understanding?
That's correct.
Okay. But it does usually, just for a local election, is $29,000?
Yes.
Okay.
When you're doing the municipal election, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Van Buskirk.
Now, since the school board there's going to be a school board election, does the school district pay a portion of the cost
They'll have
for
their
this
own,
election?
They'll have their own invoice.
They have a portion of it also. Okay. And is that the only thing that will be on there, is the school board and the city offices?
From my understanding, yes.
Okay. And so I think that's the reason where it's a higher expenditure than if it was something shared by the county, right? If there were issues, county issues on there.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So did I understand that correctly? So part of the school district's cost for their election comes out of this also?
Not out of our fund. They have
That's
their
what I
own
want to make
invoice.
sure. Okay. All right, very good. Further discussion? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Item number 3, please.
A resolution authorizing and approving an agreement for inmate security housing services by and between Johnson County, Missouri Sheriff's Office and the City of Raytown, Missouri in excess of $15,000, but within budgeted amounts for fiscal year 2010-2011.
Chief, anything to add to this item?
We're out of contract. We did this with normal business practices to look for a facility. There's a reason that the Ray County Housing Authority was asking us to be responsible for medical bills. Under state statute, we are not responsible, and we don't want to put that in the contract. So, we bid it out, and there's only 2 people who responded, Ray County, and of course they want the contract the way they want it, and we don't want it that way. Bad thing is the services go up. Ray County's was $30.50 per day in Johnson County, and that's for males and $35.50 per day for females. Johnson County is a flat $38.50. So there will be some additional costs potentially there. But we don't feel that we don't want to enter in a contract with Ray County that is attempting to commit us to medical bills. Lieutenant Wisner has more information. I know one of the medical bills he has in there for an emergency visit in Ray County was about $5,000, and that's just one. And of course, they send them to us all the time, and so you guys know we don't pay them. But but anyway, that's the main reason why we searched out other facilities. These are the only two that responded our inquiry, and we're asking to move to Johnson County, Missouri facility. We feel that would be a better facility for us and for the inmates, and that should be open May 1st, I think we can. And so we're asking this for spending authority for $15,000. It's within budget. It's just going to be entering in a new contract.
Questions of the chief? Ms. Melson?
I do have a couple of questions, so bear with me.
That's okay.
In the contract, it's in the interdepartment communication. On number 2, medical cost B, it states that the contract, the inmate of the Raytown Police Department will be responsible for costs associated with emergency care. So we are paying for emergency care? And then it's got their contract also contain a non-emergency section, which they will have on-site medical care for the prisoners. So
Lieutenant Wisner will be able to answer that, I believe.
it's on.
Yes, ma'am. There's a complete state statute covering the cost of medical care provided for inmates that are in our custody.
Okay.
Ray County, according to their contract, wants to make the agency, which is us, responsible for that. Not an either or, but they want us to be responsible for
Totally.
those
Okay.
things. Okay. Through Johnson County, they have hired contracted with Advanced Correctional Health Care, who they will provide the health care there. And also they understand that, again, they're not responsible for the inmate's medical care, and they will bill that to the inmate if they do require care.
Okay, so that's why it's got the inmate or clause in there?
Are you looking at the Johnson County contract or the Ray County?
No, it's Johnson County. It's under 2B, under medical cost.
Is it Lieutenant Biling's in our office? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Under B, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if he took that directly off of Mr. Niffin's bid review or not, because that wasn't entirely accurate.
Okay.
Okay. In the actual contract, the way that Ray County has done it, it said it'll be the responsibility of the inmate or the agency, and that's what's in the actual contract.
Okay. All right. And then with this on the Johnson County Sheriff's letter, it says that they'll be opening the new jail facility in February 2011. Is that something that y'all have visited and taken a tour of?
Yes, ma'am. I was down there the first part of February, and unfortunately, they're running behind schedule due to the weather. What they did was the county purchased a former private facility, which was, I believe, at one time was called Integrity Correctional Center. The county purchased it, and as a matter of fact, they're not only going to make it their detention facility there in Johnson County, but they're moving their entire sheriff's office operation to that location.
Okay, so is it open now?
No, I talked to Sheriff Heiss down there today, and the location of the facility is such where they're having some communication problems. They just poured the base for their radio tower today, and
okay.
They're hoping, I asked him, I said I needed to have an idea when they were going to be operational. And it is his intent to at least move their people there by the middle of April and be prepared to take outside inmates by the 1st of May.
Oh, okay. All right. And I'm not sure about this question, but it says on the agreement for confinement of prisoners, and it's under 1E, and it says that all of its employees are independent contractors who come into contact with inmates will background check and screen stuff. Why would they have independent contractors?
Well, one of the reasons is, like I said, not all of the people in the facility are actually county employees. For example, the healthcare people, they have nurses and people like that, and doctors that come in that obviously are contractors.
Okay, so it would be more towards the healthcare aspect of it, and those would be the type of independent contractor.
And I'm not sure if depending upon what you call a contractor, they're not necessarily sworn officers. They are civilian workers.
Okay.
So.
Okay. It also says about access to the court system. Is that like through a video aspect that they do? Or do they have to take them and transfer them?
Well, I think what it also provides them with, I mean, at any time that you're an inmate, you have the right of appeal and things of that nature, and they also have a law library and things of that where they can access that information in order to have access to the legal system.
Okay. It says in here that, and I think it's several places, that if an inmate has HIV, AIDS, something of that nature, that they basically or have the option not to accept that type of prisoner. What do we do in that instance then?
Well, that's what was actually in the contract. And when I went and visited the facility, there were several other municipal agencies in eastern Jackson County who were touring it with me.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that the sheriff was able to assure us of, he says, is that if you do have inmates that have those types of health conditions, previously Ray County would reject some of these. Right. Johnson County says they're willing to take those inmates as well, only because they have the capability within the facility to care for them.
Oh, okay. It also says in here about charge for physician or nurse practitioner orders testing to be completed. Prior approval shall be obtained from the agency before tests will be completed. So the agency being Raytown Police, do they then have to okay what these tests are? And if there's a doctor that you all consult with to say, yeah, that's a necessary test?
Well, and again, that depends on what the actual medical people there at the facility advise.
Okay.
In other words, this is one of those, best practices situations.
Right.
We're not going to be, allowing inmates to come in and have elective surgery and things like that.
Right. So they would inform you of any type of the testing.
Correct.
They broke their shoulder and they need to X-ray
and even so, we're still abiding by the state statute where, like I said, the agency is not going to be responsible for these inmate medical bills. Okay. Simply because the inmate makes the request. We have that happen a lot, and we do have paramedics that come by and check them, and a lot of times a detention facility won't take them until we've taken them for a screening. But again, within the state statute, it also says that the inmate will be responsible for that financial obligation.
Okay. Just a couple more.
Sure.
And you did say that you've inspected it, so that's the right of inspection. So you guys can go down there at any time and inspect the facility, check out the inmates.
It's
open.
It's a much more advanced facility than what we're presently using, and they can handle. Again, when we have, believe it or not, the county jail in Ray County would kind of turn us away if we had somebody who was an inmate who was not exactly 100% cooperative.
Yeah.
Johnson County says not a problem.
Because their facility's more adept to that.
That's right.
Instance.
They can put them in timeout.
A long timeout. Also, I got one more question here about, it says that programs that they will have the same access and right to participate in facility programs. What kind of things would that be?
A lot of times, you have a number of whether they be religious programs or counseling programs, substance abuse programs, alcohol, drug programs. All these facilities the facility will have all these programs, and all those inmates, whether they're ours or whether they're Johnson County's, will have the same access to them.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Good. Other questions? Mr. Lightfoot.
Actually, my question was the same as the first question from Alderman Melson. I see that, it's about 25% a day higher with Ray County, and where she referred to the inmate or the Raytown Police Department would be responsible for the cost, that was on the interdepartment communication sheet.
Yes.
But also, actually, in the contract, under 3B emergency care, it says all costs associated with the care will not be the responsibility of the facility, but will be the inmate or agency.
That's correct.
So, or agency, would that be Raytown?
Yes, sir.
So if the inmate doesn't pay his bill, which is most likely, then we will have to pay the bill?
No, sir.
I'm just misunderstanding that.
No, like I said, we're in no way legally obligated to pay that bill unless it's an injury that we caused.
Okay.
And obviously if it's going to be at another facility, then obviously those people there, they also have their guidelines that they'll be going by.
Okay, I was just misunderstanding that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Kramer.
When you just said that about if it's an injury we cause, if they resist and we forcefully take them down and they're injured in the process, does it then make it our responsibility to medically care for them?
I think that we've done that in the past. I couldn't tell you for certain. The reason I say that is that this is a relatively new assignment for me. I got in this position in January, so I'm kind of getting used to the rules and regulations governing jails and correctional facilities. But for the most part, no. If an individual is injured and it's, obviously they could always bring suit against us to recover damages if they felt that we were negligent. But, and that I would have to defer to the city attorney to determine whether or not we've had that situation in the past.
Well, I'm not an attorney, but I would think that if they brought it on themselves, that it wouldn't be our problem. But
and again, I believe that was the intent of the statute.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Melson.
Do we have a motion to accept yet?
Not yet. I'd like one.
I would make one then.
And Ms. Melson has the motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Pardue. Further discussion before we vote on item number 3. Mr. Ertz, ready to go? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Item number 4, please.
A resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Miller Paving and Construction, LLC for the 2011 concrete repair project in an amount not to exceed $126,987.50.
Mr. Knoll, anything to add, sir, as our Public Works Director?
This is the first step in our pavement management program for the year, is to go through and replace concrete curbs, sidewalks, and handicap ramps along roads that we're doing, mainly the overlay and then also the lightweight aggregate seal that we're proposing for the future. Those will come in about a couple of months. The apparent low bidder was Miller Paving and Construction, LLC. In the original bid, they missed a addendum that added a second bid item to this, which was to provide granite aggregate instead of the limestone aggregate. They were about $5,000 lower than the second bid. We contacted them, made them aware of their error, and they stated that they'll be willing to provide the granite aggregate for the same price as the limestone aggregate. So what we're going to do, what we're proposing at this point is to move forward with them at their base bid price and then have them sign a no-cost change order to effectively include the granite aggregate in that contract. So they'll have two items. One will be the contract and one will be a no-cost change order for them as well. So
Questions,
here to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Knoll. Mr. Azier.
This includes only concrete work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, there's no overlay. Okay.
Not at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Azer's got the motion approved, seconded by Mr. Pardue. Discussion on item number 4 before you, Mr.
Yes,
Kramer.
As far as the projects that we've had, we have already identified where we're going to start at and what's a priority and all that from there, right?
We have not identified where the contractor will actually start. We'll leave that up to them. We've given them enough time where they'll be able to complete all of the concrete work before we come in behind them with the asphalt overlay and the next steps in the yearly process. But we have identified the areas where we're going to be doing the repairs on a map. Yes.
Okay. Well, and as I said in municipal committee, I'm very pleased that we're going to be able to get the granite aggregate because it's so much more durable. And so that's just a great thing for the city to be able to come up with that. So thanks a lot.
Mr. Van Buskirk.
Yeah, it's great that we're going to get this at the same price as the limestone. And I noticed that the engineer's estimate was considerably higher, about 40,000 higher than what we actually came in as a bid. So that's a good thing. And so I think that this is I guess I maybe shouldn't use the word bargain, but I think it's a pretty good deal for us.
Ms. Melson.
Well, mine's not a question, it's just a statement that, again, I'm disappointed because there's not a lot of the black, red, green, or blue dots in Ward 3 because we don't have any of these. And so hopefully someday I would like to see a lot of that going on in Ward 3 because we would certainly like to have curbs and sidewalks and ADA ramps.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, excuse me. I just had a question about the ADA ramps. I'm looking at the map here where you're going to do the work. Are we anywhere near in compliance with federal regulations in terms of the number of these ramps that we have throughout our city, or not?
What we need to be in compliance with is as we go through and perform any major maintenance work on the roadway, that we need to bring those ramps up to compliance at that point. So you'll notice in the last couple of years along Woodson, when we went through and overlaid that we repaired all of the ramps and brought those up to the current code for those ramps to make them compliant. So that's our plan is as we go through each street, we will bring them up to the current code at that point. That's what's required with the federal regulations.
So we have time.
Correct.
To do whatever we're going to do. Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Knoll? We've got a motion and a second. Further questions, Mr. Van Buskirk? Okay. No further questions. I'll ask the clerk to call the vote, please.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
Item number 5, please.
A resolution authorizing and approving the expenditure of funds with Datamax in excess of $15,000 but within budgeted amounts for fiscal year 2010-2011.
Mr. Knoll, the floor again is yours, sir. Anything to add?
This is to replace when we went and priced out the options for either keeping our current leased copier in the mailroom or providing a used one in replacement. It was determined that it was significantly less expensive to utilize a used machine from Datamax that would fit inside of our current maintenance agreement. We have a very cost-competitive, very aggressive priced maintenance agreement from Datamax that is in the favor of the city. Therefore, having machines that they can maintain is in our benefit significantly. So by utilizing that machine, it puts us over the $15,000 limit with any one vendor. With Datamax, that's why we're coming before the board for authority to spend more than $15,000 with one vendor.
Questions, Mr. Knoll?
Second.
Ms. White has the motion to approve.
Multiple seconds.
We got a second from everybody on the right side. I'm going to give it to Mr. Hamilton. A motion to approve, Ms. White again, second by Mr. Hamilton. Discussion on item number 5.
Mr. Mayor.
Oops, Mr. Kramer. You didn't get the motion.
In municipal, we'd talked about the turnaround time should there be a maintenance problem. And wasn't it 4 hours?
Yes. Yeah, they have a clause in their maintenance agreement that if they don't get here in 4 hours, I believe it's 2 times in a row, they will give us a credit on our maintenance agreement price for that next following month. So if they don't live up to their stated goals, there's actually a financial penalty for them built into their contract.
Well, I just got to say, great job negotiating that. That was a really good deal. What kind of turnaround time did we have on our last maintenance agreement? Was there?
Before that, it was various maintenance agreements. Each department had a separate maintenance agreement with different people, so it varied from location to location. But I don't know that I was never aware of any issues on response time.
Right. Well, it sounds like you guys did a good job on that one.
Very good. Other questions? Got a motion and a second. No further questions. Ask the clerk to call the vote.
Alderman White?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Alderman Ager?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Item number 6, please.
A resolution authorizing and approving land acquisition services in the city of Raytown, Missouri from Smith & Smith Appraisal Company, utilizing the City of Independence, Missouri Cooperative Purchase Contract and amending the fiscal year 2010-2011 budget for a total amount not to exceed $25,000.
Mr. Knoll, again, anything to add, sir?
This will be utilized to help expedite the negotiation for easements with the White Oak West Line A project. We still have about 28 easements to negotiate with, I believe it's 23 property owners through that location. What this does is it sets a fee for them to negotiate and then a fee to create a payment request, or basically that's a shortened appraisal of what the value of that easement is valued at. This is required to stay, this process is required to stay in compliance with federal regulations. This project will have some federal funds attached to it because it's through the state revolving fund loan program. This should help us eliminate any misunderstandings or disagreements further on in the projects that have plagued some of the projects in the past. So we're hoping that this will alleviate some of those issues. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Mr. Knoll? Mr. Ertz?
Are these easements necessary because we don't want to go down the street? Is this the project that's going to go from 83rd, roughly Kentucky, on down to where we left off on the last project?
These easements are necessary whether we're in the middle of the road or not in the middle of the road.
So that's no. Okay.
Correct. There were temporary easements that were necessary along that section previously. They may be 5 feet wider at that particular area, but there was a vast majority of these that were necessary because we're in the backyards of some of those areas. It's mainly to give us access during the construction. They're mainly for temporary easements. There's a few for permanent right-of-way, but vast majority of them are for temporary easements.
Do you see this as a faster method of getting the easements so we get the project done to protect some basements? And
yes, I do. I think it'll speed it up significantly.
Good.
So that it can free staff up to maintain their focus on their day-to-day activities, because most of these negotiations will most likely happen during the evening, and the appraisers are staffed for that.
We don't foresee any problems with the easements, do we?
It's hard to say until we start the negotiations.
Okay.
I hope there's not, but there may be a couple. We'll have to see as we go through.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Well, he answered a couple of my questions, but one is, and I don't foresee this happening because of all the problems with basements over there in that part of town, but what if one or more of the people don't want to sell?
The city would have the option to condemn, or we could try to redesign where we wouldn't have the easement on that particular property. So we would be going through this would have all the steps in place where if we decided that it'd be best to condemn, that this is the best location, it's the fairest location between all property owners involved, so that we don't shift all the burden to one property owner in lieu of splitting that burden half and half. So we would still have to come before the board for such authorization for that. But we'll definitely put a good faith effort to negotiate these easements. That's how we want to do it, and we would really prefer that they donate the easement, but we can't guarantee that either. But I think this will give us a fair estimate of what the value is of all of those temporary easements, and hopefully that will offset some of the feelings of I was mistreated, you gave that person a new driveway, you gave me a new light pole or something of that nature, or you gave them more than you gave me. This will be based on appraisals at this point, so I think it'll be the fairest method to acquire those easements.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Mr. Hamilton.
My questions are actually related to Alderman Lightfoot's. It states in here that this hopefully will take care of a lot of misunderstandings, and I know in the past with various easement negotiations we've had difficulties. But if, as he says, we get to a point where a person refuses to negotiate, does this outfit then come back to you or to the city and say, well, we've got this situation, what do you want to do?
That's correct. That's exactly what they'll do. They'll report back to us at each stage, letting us know the progress of the negotiations and if there's any significant negotiations that they need our approval to move forward with.
And otherwise, if the negotiation goes well and the easement is granted, the city doesn't need to be involved in investing time or energy or whatever.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Van Buskirk.
Well, it's my understanding that this company does this type of negotiation on a continuing basis, and that probably would make the whole process a lot easier for us to have them do that type of negotiation. And also, I understand that we have done this in the past on occasion. I think we discussed that at municipal committee meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The city has utilized these type of services in the past, and yes, I do believe this will make it a much smoother process to acquire these easements.
Okay, thank you.
I was kind of hoping at some point we'd get it. There we go. Ms. White's got the motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Kramer. Discussion before we vote on item number 6. Call the vote, please.
Alderman White?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Ask the clerk to perform the second reading on item number 7, please.
An ordinance authorizing and approving the city to enter into a cooperative agreement by and between the city of Raytown, Missouri and the Raytown Crossing Community Improvement District.
Two of the most popular people in our city, Mr. Jeremy Wilmoth, our finance director, and Thomas Cole, our economic development administrator.
Great. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, thank you for the time this evening. At the February 15th Board of Aldermen meeting, the board approved the formation of the Community Improvement District for Southerland Lumber Company and granted the authority of the city to enter into a cooperative agreement. As addressed during the first reading on March 1st, the cooperative agreement provides basic definitions and parameters of the district regarding such items as the manner it was formed, when it must submit its budget to the city, and the manner in which records will be kept. Each of the items in the agreement conform to the requirements of state law. A draft of the cooperative agreement was provided on February 15th. The first reading was on March 1st, and we're asking this evening for the second reading of the ordinance authorizing the city to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Raytown Crossing CID. Additional information. Last time, I believe a couple of questions arose, one being what is the fiscal year of the Community Improvement District? Per state law, that's required to coincide with the city's budget, so that would be a November to October budget. Additionally, I believe the title atop the page of the ordinance had a misspelling or was missing a word. That's been corrected. And also a question was asked about a construction schedule or a project schedule. Ms. Bushyhead is here this evening to present that and entertain any other questions you may have about this particular item.
Any questions of Mr. Cole before you ask Ms. Bushyhead to come forward? Ms. Bushyhead? Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Christine Bushyhead, 1220 Washington, Kansas City, Missouri, 64105. I'm here as a representative of Southerland Lumber Company, and I'm very excited to be here this evening. And Paul McKnight would be here otherwise, and the gentleman who's been our Southerland representative for all this time. But he's on one of those spring break trips with a senior in his family, so he's not going to be with us this evening. The schedule you were asking about, we have a range of how the schedule is going to proceed, and this is all, of course, weather-based, but essentially we plan on demolition to begin in late spring, which is likely going to be May. It may actually be sooner than that, but we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to meet with your building officials and make sure that everything is to their approval before we go in and start demolishing. But we really think likely May will begin demolition, and then construction would begin in the summer, likely in June. Demolition and construction will kind of occur simultaneously in different portions of the building, depending on what the needs are. We will have a store opening in the fall of 2011. We really hope that it will be in September. Because September is an important month in our market, but that's kind of the schedule. So demolition begins late spring, probably likely in May. The construction begins summer 2011, likely in June, and then the store opening in the fall of 2011, likely in September.
Questions, Ms. Bushyhead?
We will be closing on Thursday.
Mr. Hamilton.
Can you tell us whether or not the purchase of the property by Southerlands has been completed, or is that still?
That's the closing I speak of, and that is going to take place on this Thursday.
Okay. So there is agreement in terms of all of the ifs and ands and buts. And
there is. Friday was the end of our due diligence period. If we were not going to close, we had to terminate the contract on Friday, and we did not exercise that termination.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ertz.
I'd just like to thank her for the update that I asked for. Thank you.
Second.
No, we're not. This is not a hearing. It's not a hearing. So I will accept a motion. Who had the motion, was it? Mr. Pardue had the... Okay, Mr. Pardue has the motion to approve. It's seconded by Mr. Hamilton. I want to continue. If there's further discussion on item 7, we are in the second reading, so our motion is appropriate. Any further discussion on item number 7? Call the vote, please.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Van Buskirk?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman White?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Ms. Bushyhead, thank you. Thank you for bringing Southerlands to Raytown. I said it once before, those gentlemen have been great to work with. You have as well. I watched the cooperation between that entity and our own city staff. It was phenomenal the way it was working. We look forward to Southerlands being a part of this community, and we